nation, which has sadly held this #1 position for some years. Gender-based violence remains a priority crime for us in the SAPS. The fight against this menace in the Eastern Cape province was dealt a heavy blow last week. 4 officers on their way back from conducting crime prevention duties and GBV awareness campaign were killed in a head-off collision just outside England. We give our and put our condolences to Constable Lungelo Ngala, Frank Lila, Bukakawuli Nyembezi, and Secretary Tongai Selandu were shining examples of Batupele principles in the police service. We're mentioning these names because they were big in dealing with the campaign against the gender-based violence. Young of them, the oldest of them was 37, and the youngest was 30. So these were young people heavily dedicated in dealing with the gender-based violence. Hence, we are saluting them. Let us honor these fallen members by eradicating secondary discrimination of victims of GBV and vow to protect every woman and children at their time of need. When it comes to GBV and H, there is no room for complacency. Those sleeping on the job must get their act together or ship out. Station commanders, I urge you to act decisively against substandard service at the station. Our figures of sexual offences are beginning to show that we are stabilizing in this area. However, this does not mean we should drop our guards. We remain encouraged that rapists can be brought to book through the availability and access to the rape kits at all police stations. Moreover, DNA recovery plan is in place to progressively clear the DNA backlog experience at the SAPS Forensic Science Laboratories. The nation is assured that we are working around the clock to clear the backlog, and GBVH cases are being prioritized. The delays have been severe, we admit, but 42% of dockets for crime committed against women and children that have been outstanding for over a year have now been finalized, especially police working with the NPA and the prosecution to fast-track these outstanding cases. The SAPS is also hiring more forensic analysts to work through backlog in our labs. There has been a commitment to tighten the SAPS contract management system, and ensure contracts are renewed on time. To ensure the future, we avoid a repeat. To ensure that in future we avoid the repeat of these bottlenecks, an early warning system to detect anomalies is being developed. Most importantly, eliminating corrupt practices that once plagued the forensic division of the SAPS is non-negotiable. On farmer tax, in the first 3 months of 2021, 11 were killed in 10 incidents of murder, which occurred in farms and small holdings. 4 of those murdered were farm dwellers, 4 were farmers or farm owners, 2 of these victims were farm employees, while 1 was a night guard at the farm workshop. In this reporting period, there's been some decline in property and livestock crimes. Property-related crimes decreased by 20.8%. Stock theft also took a dive, recording 11.1% decline. Unfortunately, sheep, poultry, and cattle, they've become top victims of these crimes. And I've seen that some pigs and donkeys, they've been also stolen. Burglary at the residential and non-residential premises declined drastically by double digits. Theft of vehicle and motorcycle and theft of out of motor vehicles also recorded double-digit decline. We owe this to the proactive and preventative policing strategy, which realized through, amongst other things, increased police visibility. The prevalence of violence in our communities is growing to unacceptable proportions. While all cases of assault have decreased by over 9%, there were still over 75,000 cases of common assaults of GBH opened with the police between January and March 2021 this year. In 2,855 incidents of assault GBH, it was confirmed that alcohol was consumed either by the victim or the perpetrator or both. 2,047 incidents of assault GBH took place at either a bar, a nightclub, a tavern, or a shipping. This does not exclude alcohol being present in parks, beaches, and other places of entertainment. The Gauteng and Western Cape provinces recorded the highest assault cases. 16,528 incidents of assaults, both common and grievous bodily harm, were domestic related, which means the victim and perpetrator knew one another. Commissioner will have to work on alcohol abuse, which is an abortus around the necks of the nation. For us in SERPS, and certainly for the communities we serve, will have to work on this scourge. Again, communities can no longer afford to stand aside and look. They have to be part of the crime solution by saying no to alcohol abuse. Some communities have more taverns as compared to any other establishment in their area of residence, including churches and school combined. We have one community here that has got about 52 schools. It's here in Gauteng, 52 schools, 6 clinics, 38 churches, 92 spaza shops, but they've got 331 shippings and 11 bottle stores. So you can't expect a social stability in that community that is oversupplied by this alcohol. Aggravated robberies such as car hijacking increased by almost 5%. Car hijacking took place mostly in formal and non-formal residence in the country's township, followed by suburbs in urban areas. Cars of choice for criminals are sedans and hatchbacks, followed by panel vans and bakkies. There were 372 more residential robberies reported in the current reporting period compared to the corresponding period in the previous financial year. 2.8% more robberies at the non-residential places such as business, churches, and schools took place during this reporting period. Police must step up their efforts in clamping down on truck hijackings, which recorded a double-digit % increase. 354 trucks or courier vans were targeted for their cargo, which is usually food, appliances, and other price goods. In the last national crime statistic release, I didn't mince my words when I called on the police to urgently get their act together in addressing the high incidence of cash in transit. While police officers still have their hands full when it comes to the preventing of this crime, while police officers still have their hands full when it comes to this crime, preventing this crime, they certainly have started to change their responses against these thugs who risk their lives and our lives and the life of the community members for their selfish gains. I recently paid a hospital visit to Sergeant and click skippers, a Cape Town police officer who was shot and injured during a CIT in Stellenbosch. It is through quick thinking of bravery of officers like Skippers and his team that resulted in criminals being arrested and left empty-handed. In the same scene, high-caliber firearms and high-powered vehicles were confiscated. In the first 3 months of this year, cash in transit has decreased by 10.6%. In conclusion, yes, we are making strides in many provinces that are reporting decline in various crimes categories, including murder. And we are equally aware that there are some provinces regressing on the gains they previously made in the creation of safer communities. It is encouraging to see the emergence of some stability, but also there are areas that we must still address through shifting of resources. There were less assaults, sexual crimes, theft and burglaries in the first 3 months of this year compared to the previous period of reporting. We will continue to work hard to maintain that trend. As part of the South African Police Service turnaround plan, operational oversight interventions in the Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal have already started. Hundreds of additional forces have been deployed from national to these provinces to assist in crime-fighting initiatives. Our focus will also turn to the Free State and Mpumalanga for implementation of the similar interventions. More police boots and functional police patrol vehicles will always work as National Commissioner oversees these operations. Improving and cultivating the partnership between the police and the communities is more important now than ever. To all police officers of this country, if we can maintain and improve these latest crime figures, we will turn tide against crime. We cannot afford to give criminals to terrorized communities any room to breathe. It is clear they will stop at nothing to get their way, including presently attacking you as you do your job. As if that is not enough, you are also faced with the enemy COVID-19 that has claimed the lives of 608 police officers. Let this not deter you from your work, Mapoisa. Stay focused and continue to render a selfless service to the nation. There is a room for improvement, and don't drop your guard now. You remain assets to us in the SEPS and to the rest of South Africa. With those words, let me then hand over to Major General Skokoni, who will give the raw figures of these crime stats of the last quarter of the last 3 months. Thanks very much.
Good morning, Minister, DM, National Commissioner, Deputy National Commissioners, members of the media, and the public in general. Today we will be presenting the Q4 and the final quarter of the 2020-2021 crime stats. As is the norm, we will first go to the table that we cover the 17 community reported crimes in a summarized version. Then after we have presented the statistics, they will then be loaded onto the SAPS website, whereby a comprehensive presentation will be found there, and also the top 30 stations by the various categories from 17 community reported contact crimes, etc. So for now, they are not yet been loaded. Just be patient. They will be on the SAPS website as soon as we are done with the briefing. That being said, the 17 community reported crimes that we have reported or had been reported to the police in the current quarter, the contact crimes we have recorded an increase of 387 murders. We have recorded a decrease of 494 sexual offenses, an increase of 366 attempted murders. We have also recorded a decrease of 3,751 assault GBH, another decrease of 3,977 in terms of common assault, then another decrease of 2,731 in terms of common robbery, and also robbery aggravating circumstances. We have also recorded a decrease of 2,636. And overall, for the broad category of contact crimes, we have recorded decreases of 12,818. That means that of the 7 crimes that make up the contact crime category, only 2, which is murder and attempted murder, have increased. The other 5 have recorded decreases. Then in terms of the rapes, we have recorded a decrease across all the sexual offenses. A rape decrease of 387, sexual assault a decrease of 3, attempted sexual offenses a decrease of 64, contact sexual offenses a decrease of 40, and the total sexual offenses have recorded a decrease of 494. Now, the next category that I'm looking into is the subcategories of robbery with aggravating circumstances. You might have noticed that in the robbery with aggravating circumstances, I had said there is a decrease. However, when you look at the subcategories, you might notice an increase in terms of carjacking, robbery res, and robbery non-residential. The reason for that is that we have exclusively highlighted those crimes like your trio crimes, your bank robberies, and truck hijacking. But in the broad category of robbery with aggravating circumstances, it includes the attempts of these crimes, whereby these crimes were not successful. So we report them in the broad category of robbery with aggravating circumstances. Then we also report the specific carjacking and the other crimes. And what is also sitting in that robbery with aggravating circumstances is a crime called robbery with weapon other than a firearm, and also robbery with a firearm. So it's also included in the broad category, but then when we break them down, we only refer to the carjacking, robbery res, robbery non-residential. So the total of the robbery aggravating circumstances exceeds those that are the 6 that we are reporting. Hence the decrease in the robbery aggravating, but the 6 that we are reporting on have recorded an increase. I hope that clears the misunderstanding or the misconception that might have been created by why are the subcategories increasing when the broad category is decreasing. Then on the next slide, because we always, when we report on this, there has been a tendency to take the number of crimes and then divide them by the number of days and say so many people had been murdered in a particular period, etc. And according to statistics, the only denominator that you can use to determine the ratios and the rates is the population size. So we have included those population ratios to indicate against the contact crimes for murder that we have reported 8.3 per 100,000. That means if you divide the country's population into equal portions of 100,000, the probability of a person ending up being a victim of murder is 8.3 per 100,000. And the denominator that we used for such population figures was obtained from Stats SA using the 2017 series and February mid-year population estimates as the midpoint. So these numbers are obtained from Stats SA. Then the other category is the contact-related crimes. We have recorded decrease in both the crimes that make up the contact crime, that is your arson and malicious damage to property. Total contact-related crimes have decreased by 1,377. And the property related crimes, we have recorded decrease in terms of the broad category of 23,991 and a percentage decrease of 20.8. So across all the property related crimes, we have recorded decreases. Then in the other serious crimes, we have recorded an increase only in commercial crime, that was 11.7%, and the rest of the other serious crimes have recorded decreases. Then in terms of the crime detected as a result of police action, which is used as a proxy for police proactive responses, unfortunately we have recorded decreases. Remember, the ideal here is to have more and more people who are using drugs and illegal possession being detected and taken off the streets. So the rate there in this instance indicates that we have recorded or arrested less people than in the previous quarter. Then the trend in terms of the 17 community reported crimes, one thing that maybe we should also take into consideration is that during January and February we were still under level 3 of the lockdown, and then I think the president announced the beginning of March, where we then moved into adjusted level lockdown 1. Now when you look at the breakdown per month in terms of the 17 community reported crimes, under level 3, which was January, we had recorded a decrease of 33,461. Then again in February, we had another decrease of 17,681 in terms of the 17 community reported crimes. And then in the month where we moved to adjusted level 1, we have noticed an increase in terms of the 17 community reported crime. That is where you have the blue line crossing over the green line, whereby the blue line is the current financial year and the green line is the previous quarter of the corresponding period. Then across all the provinces, we have recorded decreases in the 17 community reported crimes. The biggest decrease was recorded in Gauteng with 16,461. Second was Western Cape with 12,749, and KZN with 6,837. Then in terms of the 17 community reported crimes, top 30 stations, we have the stations as they are indicated there. What is worth mentioning here is that we have 12 stations that were from the province of Gauteng, 8 were from the province of KZN, 6 were from the province of the Western Cape, and we had 1 station each from the province of Northwest, Mpumalanga, Free State, and the Northern Cape. And the other thing is that if you look at the top 30 stations, they have all recorded decreases for the current quarter. So the top 10 stations, they are from 6 different provinces. So each province is kind of represented in the top 30 stations. We have the station from KZN, Gauteng, Western Cape, Free State, Northwestern, and Mpumalanga. Then contact crimes. In January and February, we recorded decreases. And then again, when we moved to adjusted level 1, we recorded an increase of 5,287. And all the provinces have recorded decreases. Then in the top 30 contact crime stations, we had 15 of these stations that are in the top 30 contact crime stations from the province of Gauteng. 9 were from the Western Cape and 6 were from KwaZulu-Natal. So only 3 provinces are represented in the top 30 contact crime stations, that is Gauteng, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. Now, we focused on the crime of murder based on its severity and its impact on the community. So when we looked at the murder trend over the 3 months, in January we recorded a decrease of 268. In February we recorded an increase of 200. Then again in March we recorded an increase of 455. Again The blue line represents the current quarter, and the green line represents the previous quarter of the corresponding period. Then the province that had recorded the highest number of murders was KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Gauteng, and then we had the Eastern Cape at number 3, and also the Western Cape at number 4. In terms of the top 30 stations that we have recorded, we had from station number 1 to station number 3 in terms of murder. All these stations are from the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Then from number 4 up to number 8, these stations are from the province of Western Cape. Then we had Gauteng at number 9, and then again Western Cape come back at number 10 and 11. Then 12 and 13 becomes the Eastern Cape. So that is the distribution in terms of the murders by province from the top 30 stations. Then when we looked at the causative factors for murder, this is I think a representative sample, given the fact that it's over 98% of the murders that have been reported in the country. We drew a sample to determine what are the causative factors for the various crimes. And we determined that in terms of the murder, the arguments were the most common cause of the murders, followed by robberies at 341. Then we had mob justice at number 3, gang-related was at number 4 with 236, and then taxi-related murders were at number 5 with 88. In terms of attempted murders, most happened during the robberies, either business or house or in the street, followed by arguments, and then gang-related at number 3. Assault GBH mostly were due to arguments and misunderstanding, followed by retaliation and revenge, then vigilantism and mob justice at 403, and also robberies at 344. Then we looked at the causative factors, trying to establish per province what each province contributed. What one would like to mention at this point is that this table should be read across the columns, not across the rows, because these samples were drawn independently in each province. So the reading should be down the column of the particular province. For instance, you will then say Eastern Cape recorded the highest number of murders that were attributable to arguments. Then this was followed by mob justice or vigilantism, and then house robbery. Whereas in KZN reported that most of the murders, that is 199, were as a result of arguments and misunderstandings, followed by vigilantism and mob justice, and then house robberies at number 3. So that is the way in which this table should be read. Then when we look at the place of occurrence of these selected crimes, we found that most of the places of occurrence were in the residence of the perpetrator or the victim. The minister, I guess, touched and elaborated on that particular part. So this just gives you the breakdown in terms of where the places of occurrence of these murders, attempted murders, and assault GBH were. And then you can see that they were mostly in the residences of the perpetrator and also public places, which of course does not exclude that there might have been the use of alcohol, whereby it might not have been mentioned specifically in the statement. I think I have 5 minutes. I'll try to rush over over the other slide. We then recorded 24 murders of police officials in the current quarter, of which 13 were on duty and 13 were off duty and 11 were on duty. Then the murders of the farming community, we had reported 11 murders, whereby the minister talked about that the 4 were farm owners or farmers or farm owners, 4 were occupants or farm dwellers, 2 were farm employees, and 1 was a security guard at the workshop at the farm. Then in the next slide, we looked at the attacks on all farms and small holdings incident over the 3-year period, and we had recorded 206 counts from 130 incidents. And of the 120 assaults that we are seeing there, 12 of those 120 common assaults were instances whereby the perpetrators were farmers and the victims were farm dwellers. And in 10 of the assault GBH, 5 of those were perpetrated by farmers and the victims were farm dwellers. So you can see that there is almost, it cuts both ways. Then we looked at the instances where I had already talked about, where the common assaults, 12 were farmers who had perpetrated the crimes against the farm dwellers, and then the 5 assault GBH whereby the victims were farm dwellers, and 3 attempted murders whereby the victims were farm dwellers and the perpetrators were farm owners. Then in the next slide, we looked at the involvement of alcohol, where it was specifically mentioned that either the victim or the perpetrator had used alcohol prior or during the commission of the crime. We had seen that 2,855 of the assault GBH alcohol was used. 989 alcohol was used in terms of the rapes, and then 168 in terms of the murders alcohol was used. And the brown bar indicates the use of drugs in some instances. So in terms of the places where they occurred, we had 2,047 assault GBH and 118 murders happening at incidents whereby it was confirmed that it was a liquor outlet. Then these are the rape trends. We have reported decreases in the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Northern Cape, and the Western Cape. And then in terms of the places of occurrence, again in terms of the places of occurrence, from the sample of 6,893, we found that most of the rapes happen at the residence of the perpetrator or the victim, including residences known by the victim, which also indicates that there might have been some kind of a domestic relationship between the perpetrator and the victim. Then in terms of the top 30 station, the minister talked about Lisukisiki overtaking Inanda, so I won't go into those details. Then we also looked at the domestic violence instances. We looked at the selected crimes whereby it was specifically mentioned that the victim or the perpetrator was in a domestic relationship. We had 36 murders happening in KwaZulu-Natal, followed by 32 of the murders happening in the Western Cape, 31 of the murders that were domestic related happening in Gauteng, and then 4 happening in the Eastern Cape. Overall, 88 victims were female and 87 victims were male, whereby domestic relationship was specifically mentioned. Then this slide I will skip because we have already touched on it. Then we looked at the trio crimes. In terms of the trio crimes, again, we recorded a decrease in January. However, in February and March, we recorded increases for February 77 and 847 for March. That is when we moved to adjusted level 1. And these are the top 30 stations that we have indicated in terms of the total trio crimes. Then when we look at the carjacking over the period, we had recorded decreases in Limpopo, the Northwest and the Northern Cape, and the other provinces. We have recorded increases with the exception of Free State, which recorded the same number as the previous quarter. Then the top 30 stations in terms of the carjacking, we had Nyanga at number 1, Loate, Umlazi, Harare, and Temba making the top 5 stations. This was touched on by the Minister, where he indicated that most of the carjacking happened in township, suburbs, and rural areas, and the preferred types of cars have already been indicated there. Then robbery at the residential premises. The provinces that recorded decreases was Eastern Cape, Gauteng, and the Northern Cape. And then we had the top 30 stations in terms of the robbery at the residential premises. Then next we had robbery at non-residential premises. Provinces recording decreases: Eastern Cape, Free State, Limpopo, and the Western Cape, followed by the robbery at non-residential premises top 30 stations. Then cash in transit, we had recorded a decrease in the month of February. However, in the month of January and March, we had recorded increases. The provinces that recorded increases was the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. Then the other provinces recorded decreases. Then truck hijacking, unfortunately, it has increased across January, February, and March of the current year. The minister indicated that mostly it's your courier vehicles and others which are mainly targeted for their cargo, etc. So that is the picture for the truck hijacking for the current quarter. Then property-related crimes, we have recorded decreases across all the 9 provinces, and we have also recorded decreases across all the 3 months of the current quarter. Then property-related crimes, top 30 stations. One notice is there is that most of these stations are mostly in the kind of highly urbanized areas like your suburbs, Brook Lane, Cape Town Central, Pinetown, Rustenburg, etc. So you'll find that most of these are made up of theft out of motor vehicle, theft out of or from motor vehicles, and such crimes. Then stock theft, we've been tracking it for quite some time, and we've managed to reduce it over the different periods, and even in the current quarter we have managed to reduce it. The only province that recorded an increase in terms of stock theft was Gauteng, and then Mpumalanga recorded the same numbers as in the previous quarter. Then the top 30 stations in terms of the stock theft are also indicated there. We had Kumbu at number 1, Taylor's Halt at number 2, Sulenkama, Mtata, and Zolo, which are making the top 5 stock theft stations. And that is the briefing of the Q4 crime statistics covering the period from January to March 2021. I thank you.
Thank you so much, General, for that very comprehensive presentation of the Q4 crime statistics. It is a time where we now allow for questions and answers. As indicated before, that we do have those questions that can be sent to us through our WhatsApp line, but we do also have our colleagues in the media that are joining us here at the GCIS. We will start with them, and then we will take on the more questions that are in the WhatsApp line. Let me start with the first 3 possibly. Can I just have a show of hands of who will take the first bite? I see ENCA, SABC, and we'll take it in that order. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Minister and General and Deputy Minister. I just have 3 questions. Firstly, if you look at the murder rate quarter on quarter, it has increased, and this has been the biggest increase from October to December last year until January this year. October to December was at 1,134, and now we're standing at 4,900. I mean, that is an astronomical increase in murders. Can you just take us through that, and what do you see in the trends? And that obviously has to be in a very worrying factor for the police on that, firstly. Secondly, just on what the General has mentioned in terms of contact crimes, that more has been detected. The fact of the matter is, the contact crimes that affect people themselves, robbery at residential, robbery at non-residential, car hijacking, truck hijacking, with the exception of robbery, cash and transfer robberies, all of them have gone up. And those are policeable crimes in terms of visible policing and crime intelligence. Is there a problem that you see in that trend in terms of crime intelligence, because that is policeable crimes? Combat assault is not a very easy policeable crime. So that has to be, just if you can talk to that. And then just my last question in terms of forensics, with a backlog since April last year, what's it, 208,000 or something, if I remember the stats correctly now, Minister. Obviously this has to be worrying. How quickly do you want that backlog to be eradicated, if you will, and get it done with, because you're sitting with 150 to 200,000 crimes that has to come in and be processed every year by forensics, and that backlog is just going to keep on coming. So how quickly do you want that to be finished up? Have you given an instruction? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gerard. We'll take another question from the SABC.
Thank you very much. So Francis Timo, SABC News. Minister, you did concede to the fact that society is actually getting more and more violent, with assault, GBH actually on the increase, murder and attempted murder on the increase. Why are we losing the fight against these violent crimes, especially the ones where, you know, the vulnerable are at risk of either being murdered or assaulted and the like? Another question that I have is operational issues. People on the ground have raised concerns that the fact that there are no vans can be attributed to operational issues, of the fact that the van might have to take like 3 months just to fix a puncture or just a minor dent on that particular van. What is being done in order to ensure a turnaround time that will be timelessly, especially because crimes, when they are committed, it's an urgent thing that needs an urgent reaction? Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, CBC. Let's take those first 4 questions, Minister and Commissioner.
Well, indeed, the murder trend is worrying. We fully agree with you. One other thing that we have noticed with murder, it's a form of one incident and multiple victims. That would be your Western Cape mostly, and your KwaZulu-Natal. There would be other areas, especially the mining areas where there are zamazamas, that you find less incidents but more victims, which is sometimes a difficult thing to police. And you find that people that have been sitting and enjoying themselves, quite several of those people that will die in the places of entertainment, in your shebeens, in houses. Eastern Cape is also coming on that one, especially places like your Lusikisiki, your Kumbu, where there is a stock theft and all that. So it's worrying. The question of more people dying with small incidents, as I've said, that the mining towns, your Zamazamas, your East Rand, your Free State and all. It's something that we are trying to work on it as the South African police, but generally with the communities themselves to assist on us to deal with this issue. But what will help most is that the perpetrators are arrested on the things. So those people must be found and sent to prison. Maybe it will then go to the question of the forensic, because things like murder and rape cannot be easily resolved if you don't deal with your forensic, which has been the matter. You raise the figure of 208,000 backlog. That is end of that's end of March. We believe when it comes to this one, we have turned the tide. There were several things that were wrongly done, which have been corrected. One of those things are contracts. The contracts of buying the material, of buying chemicals. 16 of those contracts have been signed now. 7 of them are still under evaluation. We believe that will be evaluated and signed. The other thing that was left hanging there is a depletion of the staff in these crucial places. 128 more people have been put in this place, promoted internally of the South African police. 150 posts have been advertised from outside of the scientists and people that will have to come and work on that. The adverts have been there. Even the interviews have started. We expect to put those people in place by end of July. The laboratories that are in full functional is Western Cape and Gauteng. Fortunately, I personally visited Western Cape 2 days ago, and we listened what people they think we should do. One of those things is the maintenance of machines that are working there, that they are fully functional all the time. 250 million has been found to do those things, to increase the question of overtime. Just put those people there, but overtime, which has been negotiated with the labor, and those negotiations are going. Out of these 208, 72,000 are issues of rape of women and children. That, together with the NPA and the courts, has been prioritized to send those specimens of the outstanding cases to court. So those have been prioritized. NPA works with the police to say, can you move quicker on this? So we are working on that form of a chain going forward. We believe that we have turned the corner here, and we'll be working on dealing with both the murders and the rape if this is done in a proper way. The other question, the trend of the crime that you said can be worked by crime intelligence, and the operational matters will be answered by the National Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and let me also acknowledge the presence of the Deputy Minister and thank the media for the questions. It will be important for me to start with the operational matters first. As part and parcel of the intensified approach to provide a response to crime, we have put together the integrated resource strategy. And we have also appointed a dedicated committee to look at the strategic deployment of resources so that the resource approach complements the response to crime. The specific mention of the non-availability of police vans. As part of our response, we've placed supply chain under corporate renewal strategy. And within the corporate renewal strategy of supply chain, then we introduce the garage turnaround. And in terms of the garage turnaround, we are then trying to make sure that we shorten the period that would be spent by vehicles in our garages. There's few approaches that we have adopted. One of them is an intergovernmental cooperation, which we are undertaking together with the MECs in the various provinces. The second one is empowering youth, where we actually make sure then that we extend the contracting for the service of vehicles broader to the public to enhance that particular capacity. So, and the last part is also to make sure that all vehicles that we acquire, they come out with service plan. And in terms of that, then we then able to quicken the service. In terms of the crime trend, I think firstly, I just wanted us to understand then that some of the crime outcomes that you see in the crime state, like for instance, murder. I think murder is resulting from the various crime trends, including the policeable ones. But what we have then identified there as part and parcel of the criminal approach is modus operandi shift. And when you clamp down this one crime, because the modus operandi strategies, then they shift the modus operandi to the other crime. And further to that, there's also crimes of resource. Like for instance, your hijacking is a resourceful crime for many other crimes, like your cash in transit and others. So that would be type of a crime that will be actively involved in your modus operandi shift. But then both CI, which is crime intelligence in the police, and as well as NICOC at the JCPS cluster, then they have intensified working together to provide intelligence that is for us to provide a response. Over and above this, we've also formalized now fully the modus operandi strategic analysis center, and the various crimes as they actually escalate, we then declare the stabilization interventions. As I'm speaking, there's various stabilization interventions that are hotspot based. The moment we manage to stabilize the crime in those areas, we then introduce the normalization interventions. Various of the areas have been stabilized, but as I say, there's modus operandi shift, then the criminal shift to others. But the modus operandi analysis center is helping us to spot the modus operandi where it is shifting, but while we also then suppress the new modus operandi. So we are getting there to make sure that the correct response is provided. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General. We are now going to the second phase of our press conference. I just want to remind our media colleagues that the full speech, as well as the presentation of the Q4 crime statistics, is on our website, which is saps.gov.za. That's saps.gov.za. I will now take some questions from our WhatsApp group. Ignatius, can we take possibly the first 4 questions? I believe that you have a series or a horde of questions with you. Can we take the first 4 questions, please? Go ahead.
why hasn't the bill been brought to Parliament? Paul from Bloomberg, is the Minister or the National Commissioner please clear the mega very 100,000 of population? Christian Kukulesis from the Network. Can the Minister explain why the number of murders increased and what interventions police are implementing to bring this figure down? Secondly, how is the backlog with the cases is in relation to murder also being characterized? Amanda Watson from the Citizen, with regards to rape and sexual offences, how many children were affected in these categories, and was there an increase or decrease in the decrease announced across the board today? And I have another one from Medical from ENCA. What is the double-digit growth increase for drug hijackings? I can maybe take this one.
Is it just the last one?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
From Sipo Mabena, the Citizen, he says, I know these are not crime statistics related, but equally important. He says, this week we reported about Bungusha police station that was supposed to be built in Kachibane in the Dr. J.S. Morocco municipality in the province of Mpumalanga. When this projected stalled, a temporary structure was built adjacent to the halted construction site in 2018. But this was never been occupied, and the nearest police station is about 25 kilometers away. I understand officials from the police, the minister's office, visited the site and interacted with the committee members yesterday. Could the minister please confirm the visit by the delegation from his office? And if it's true, are you please able to share with us the information at your disposal about why police did not occupy the temporary or second station, as well as what will happen from now on from this SAPS side? Can the minister also take the nation to confidence with regards to the backlog in the forensic testing of DNA samples? The DNA samples testing backlog is now new and it has been climbing sharply from the past few years. What is it that you can point as a reason for the backlog? What is your office doing to clear the backlog? What all stops exactly is your office putting to clear the backlog? Do you admit that you have failed victims of crime?
I'm just going to intervene there, Ishmael. I think it's unfortunate that our colleagues are asking questions that have already been answered, especially around the DNA. The minister has on 2 occasions spoken about this on this platform. So I think that to all Mr. Mabena from, I think you said the Citizen, can maybe just go back to our recording of this press conference and get the answers from there. But we do have those other questions, Minister, and the National Commissioner, where we can maybe shed some light on those. Thank you.
Yes. Well, maybe this question were answered before we asked. Maybe we asked there before we asked in the House and answered. So we can pardon colleagues for maybe repeating those questions, but they've been answered. Maybe on this forensic, one thing, we have 7 points of monitoring, and the points that will be put there to be sure that such things is not repeated. We monitor it better. He has asked the question: Are we sure? We'll make it sure, because of there are monitoring things that we'll put there. maybe one point one did not say here is improvement of 2 other laboratories, the KZN laboratory and the Eastern Cape PE laboratory, where the contract has been already signed and the developers are already on the site in PE. Those things will help us. We are planning to say by 18 months and less the backlog has been done. So that is our target. The bill delayed. Well, it's unfortunate that sometimes our members of parliament things that they've understood when you explain, they still come and put their own arguments that did not pass in the argument. There are 2 things about this. This thing is not true that it did not happen, that the bypass samples were not taken from prison. That is why if you go to 2016, 2017 and 2018 years, the figures were very high of taking this DNA from prisons. And what happened is that there were hiccups of the people who would not, because there was no enforcement of it, who would not come forward on the matter. Then it was suggested that it should be a law in South Africa that everybody takes this example, this Bacchus sample. And then, unfortunately, that law cannot be developed by the South African police. It's a law that can be developed by the Home Affairs. Hence, the Minister of Police wrote to Home Affairs to say, can you develop this law? But of late, we have agreed that we'll pursue the Bacchus sample again, those people that have gone, though that law is about to expire. So it will need a broader law. Like all South Africans, they have fingerprints. So that law will simply say, we'll have fingerprints banked, your Bacchus banked, your DNA banked and all. So some people, they believe that that will be opposed. We haven't reached that level where it's opposed, so we intend to do it. The Home Affairs then is running with that process of dealing with dealing with this act or this bill of Bacchus samples across the board in the Republic of South Africa. The other question that was repeated is increasing of the murders. I think that was has been answered. The question of the station and truck hijack digits, Commissioner will deal with that, but also the 100, the matter per 100, the person who deal with statistics will deal with that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I will then continue. I'll start with the truck question. I think, firstly, what came out with the truck is that we have identified a stubborn modus operandi, which we are then currently responding to. Firstly, we have declared this particular type of crime for stabilization. And in the stabilization process, we are also following a multidisciplinary collaborated approach in which we are working together in the same interventions with the truck owners and other structures relating thereto. Then operationally, in the subs, we have mobilized from the highway patrol, the flying squad, and including our medium and high risk forces to complement the interventions. And we have also lined up the investigation families to attend to specific crimes that are emanating from this and take the prominent criminals where they belong. But over and above that, it's a crime that we have also declared as part and parcel of our integrated plan between the traffic and the metros. And they also then assisting us as part and parcel of the stabilization intervention. So this is the type of a response that we are providing to this particular crime. Then with regard to the police station Pungusha, is one of the 6 priority stations that we have an agent. I think firstly it's an agent directive from the minister, but secondly it's a call from the communities for the functionality of these particular police stations. The delays in the occupation of these stations, they range from legal issues where contractors have failed to meet that is their obligations. I think we have taken them through court, and the majority of them we have cleared them. But then further to that, there are just few functionality needs that are required for us to complete the police stations and declare them functional. I think all 3 police stations are set to be fully functional. We're targeting the next 3 months, in actual fact the next quarter. So soon Pungusha police station will also be operational. But the police station that is 25 kilometers away from Pungusha is also sufficiently capacitated to handle the challenge that is faced by Pungusha. But we know that communities are all calling for access to service delivery, and this particular aspect is part and parcel of the rapid service delivery access strategy which the organization has designed. Thank you.
I think there was a question that was asked in terms of per capita or per 100,000 of the murders. And then in slide 3 of the presentation, we addressed that, where we said that we used the 2017 mid-year population. Okay. The question relating to murder per 100,000, in slide 3 of the presentation, we addressed that because we have included a table for murder, rape, attempted murder, assault GBH, and common assault and common robbery using the 2017 mid-year population estimate series from Status A. So the murder for the current quarter, that is January to March 2021, is 8.3 per 100,000. So that answers the question on the murder per 100,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Generals, for those responses. Let's take another round of questions. Ignatius?
this one is directed to Major General Julius Kokunu. It's from ITL, from News 24. Have you seen any trend in the latest crime stats when looking at the top 30 GBV hotspots? Can you explain how you define what makes up domestic violence cases? Because there is not a domestic violence category. And the last question is from Jade from Report Record. And he's saying, I'm hoping you have an updated comment regarding the sleeping of police officers at the Rhodoport SAPS. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you so much, Ignatius. That is our last question, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ignatius. We will take the last answers, Minister.
Last, yeah?
That's the last one.
Commissioner will talk about sleeping at the station. I just want to pass to this. Somebody asked about the stats and the children. It's a difficult one to put, because you would hear that names and this of the children cannot, even the parents cannot be mentioned because you're protecting the children. Sometimes, and most of the time, when the cases are opened, you put the parents' details sometimes rather than the children, and you can't announce that these are the children because the law still protects the children. I just wanted to put that point on the case, that it is a difficult one to come straight with that figure. Two questions answered by myself. Extortion. Yes, you remember that in Western Cape we spend a lot of time there with all of us here, especially the National Commissioner and the Deputy Minister dealing with this matter. Is one area where the three legs of government are working very well. Province, the national government, and the local government. We have sat together. We have worked on the matters of these matters, because the extortion, especially in Western Cape, has been an elite crime. You find it in good streets like Long Streets, like your top class clubs. It has now moved to the townships, especially Khayelitsha and Nyanga and Kukuletu, where some people will go to the owner of the house who owns a backyard and will ask a person, a tenant that lives in the backyard, how much you pay as your rent. If you say 500, they'll go to the owner of the check and demand 10% or 20% of that. So then the teams were put in place, and for that 170 people have been 107 people have been arrested for that kind of extortion. And then there will be other level of extortion where the top guys have been arrested, and your Murdoch and your Morgans and Croniers and others have been arrested for those kind of charges. Yes, today the additional charge has been made in Western Cape to Murdoch, and that Murdoch charge is about Lieutenant Colonel Kenya, where we will see and watch that going forward. But that has been added today in court as we speak. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you very much for the question. Obviously, the CSC is not a bedroom, and we do not tolerate members sleeping on duty. The moment the report was made, we commissioned an internal investigation, an urgent one, because we're taking this matter as serious. And we also further taking it as a risk. But the moment a disciplinary process is initiated, we then follow that process as per the disciplinary code. The developments within and progress within the internal process, unfortunately, they are not announced. They are not for public consumption until we reach the outcome. But we are going to be reaching the outcome soon, and then we can make it known again. But we are taking serious action in terms of the matter. Thank you very much.
I think the question that was asked was the top 30 gender-based violence stations. That exercise was undertaken specifically on the request from the Department of the Presidency, whereby there was a task team that was convened to try and look and identify the gender-based violence statistics. We had a number of departments within that particular task team. We had the SAPS, we had the Department of Justice, we had the Department of Social Development, we also had the Department of Health. We also looked at data from the Tutuzela centers. And then we had the stations whereby from the sub-site, we looked at the number of incidents that had been reported at the subs police station. Then we looked at where other departments like social development and health had recorded incidences that were related to gender-based violence. Then we brought this as in a form of an index to say that if there is commonality, for instance, in station X, that it has reported rapes, highest number of rapes, it has reported highest number of domestic violence related incidents. There were many women that were admitted to the Tutuzela care centers, etc. Then we rank them based on those index of variables to develop the top 30 GBV stations. So I guess that answers what has been asked. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Generals, for the responses. But overall, for the productive press conference, it is coming to a close now. I just want to send my thanks to the panel before us, and of course to the colleagues in the media. Thank you so much for always availing yourself to cover this very important issue. With that, I'd like to bring this conference to a close. Thank you.
Thank you very much.